Hello, I'm Dr. Joseph Gordon, Emergency Management Director for the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office. I'm here today to talk to you about hurricane preparedness in Eastham, Massachusetts. One of the things I want to start with is 5 major hazards associated with hurricanes. The first one we're going to talk about is storm surge and storm tide. The next one we're going to discuss will be heavy rainfall and inland flooding. The third one is high winds, and this is a big one with me because, as we all know, whenever there's a storm event, whether it's a nor'easter in the wintertime or if it's a tropical storm coming up the coast this time of year, we always turn on our local televisions to the Boston news stations, and they're always down in the Scituate, Plymouth area on the coastline, and you see all these thrill seekers out there trying to take selfies of themselves, to take pictures of events, and that's not a good thing because they're placing themselves in harm's way. And they're not doing themselves any justice because they're putting a strain on the professional responders in those communities who have to go save them when something goes astray. So don't wander into a hazard area. Stay home, stay safe. Listen to your radio stations and your local professionals who are going to be telling you what to do and what is going on, and stay safe. The fourth thing we're going to talk about is rip currents. A lot of people don't talk about this, but we live on a beautiful peninsula that has many nice beaches that we all utilize, and rip currents can be very dangerous. They can take you out to the ocean really quickly, and you can drown. I'm going to show you what a rip current looks like. I'm going to show you how you can evacuate it, safely if you're a decent swimmer, because that could take your life. And the fifth hazard that I'm going to talk about is tornadoes. Why tornadoes? I grew up on Cape Cod. I've lived here for more than 50 years, and I can tell you right now, when I was growing up, we didn't hear a lot about tornadoes. Never heard about a tornado on Cape Cod. And then last year we had 3 touchdown right here on Cape Cod, over in the town of Yarmouth and Harwich. Very frightening. I've talked to a lot of people who lived in those areas. Hearing their stories was an eye-opener. So just these are the 5 hazards we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get into 3 steps that you can do at home to prepare yourself so that you can safeguard yourself, your property, and your family. The first one is storm surge and storm tide. Let's talk about this. Storm surge and large waves produced by hurricanes present the greatest threat to life and property along the coast. Okay, a storm surge is an abnormal rise of water generated by a storm's wind. So if you're at home and you put water in a bowl, and you take your hairdryer and you turn it on low and you put it above the bowl facing down, you'll see the water start to ripple a little bit. Now, if you turn that hairdryer on a little stronger and get it closer to the bowl, the water will push out. This is exactly what's happening in a storm surge. The eye of the hurricane is pushing winds down on the water, and the water has nowhere to go but out. And that's what happens with the storm surge. As it moves inland, it causes erosion, and it destroys property along the coastline. And if you're a thrill seeker and you're out there on the coastline, that storm surge could take your life. That's the first thing I want to talk about. The next thing is storm tide. Storm tide is the water level rise during a storm due to the combination of storm surge, and the astronomical tide. So in this slide right here, you can see in the left-hand side, the wind circulation around the eye of the storm is pushing down on the ocean surface, and it's causing the wave that's moving inland towards the shoreline, property, and anybody that's in the way of the storm surge. The storm tide is a combination of storm surge and normal tide. So as you can see in the top picture here, we have what's called normal tide. We all know what low tide is. We all know what high tide is. But in between that is the average, the mean tide. When a storm tide occurs, and you look at the bottom picture in this slide, you'll see that it is the average tide plus the storm tide. That water level, that's your storm tide. So keep that in mind when you hear those terms thrown out on TV. If I didn't do a good job presenting of it, you can go online, you can look this stuff up, you can use Google or any other search engine, or you can go to the Federal Emergency Management Agency website. They explain a lot of this. Your National Weather Service does too. You got to know this stuff. So when you hear it from forecasters, you understand there's danger coming. The second thing I want to talk about is heavy rainfall and inland flooding. Okay? Flash flooding is defined as a rapid rise of water levels which can occur quickly due to intense rainfall. Now, a lot of the surfaces in town, in a town, are paved. So there's nowhere for the water to go. And when rainfall happens very quickly, the ground gets saturated from the water, and there's no way for the water to drainage out, so it just starts to flood. We see a lot of this in the state of Connecticut, because of what happens is above Connecticut is western Massachusetts, then Vermont and New Hampshire, and all those rivers that flow down run through Connecticut Valley. So when there's a lot of rain in the area, the water starts running down the river towards the ocean. And the combination of a saturated land and the rivers flooding, we see this happening a lot. And you got to know about heavy rainfall and inland flooding, because if you go down south, this happens a lot down there. Just be careful. Anytime you're approaching a waterway, a water on a roadway, don't continue to drive through it. A lot of people do. We see this all the time on world news. It's a danger. A lot of people lose their lives because they think that they can drive through water. You can see the picture here. You can see on the left-hand side, the car has come to a stop because the electrical circuits of the car will stop working because of the water, and the car becomes dead in the water. The next slide here shows the vehicles leaning downwards because the engine in the front is the heaviest part of the vehicle. So what happens is in these deep waters, the car starts to sink down. The water is so strong that the doors can't be opened, and a lot of people drown inside their vehicles. So don't drive through flooding. High winds. High winds is what I mentioned earlier. It's a big thing on me because a lot of people are thrill seekers and they want to go out and take pictures. Don't do it. You can see in this slide, there's a lot of debris being blown around, whether it's shingles from a roof, the roof itself, or signs. We see this all the time when we watch the news, when hurricanes are hitting down in Florida or the Carolinas. People are outside and signs are flying by or parts of roofs. Don't go out there. Tree limbs fall all the time. You can get seriously hurt. You can lose your life. You can lose an eye. Don't do it. When we talk about hurricanes, the Saffir-Simpson wind scale is what we talk about. And I'm just putting this out there because when we start mentioning certain terms and the public don't understand it, it can lead to misinformation because they don't process it right. And it could cause people not to make a good decision. We talk about these category storms. So category 1, yeah, it's 74 to 95 mile per hour wind. Some people might think, oh, that's nothing, but it still can be very dangerous. You hear about category 3 and above, you should be evacuating long before that even gets close to Cape Cod. So these are some of the things that are going to make you decide when to evacuate, if to evacuate, and the information that you have is going to allow you to make the right decision as long as that information is received in a timely fashion. The thrill seekers I talked about, here they are. Here's 4 pictures. You can see the gentleman down on the right-hand column with the orange rain suit gear on. He's wearing eye protection. That's great. He's protecting his eyes. But you can see he's leaning into the wind. His head is down. And if something comes flying off a roof or a branch breaks on a tree or anything, a can comes whipping down and hits him in the head, that could be lethal. So just don't go out there. We see the young lady down on the left-hand side. She's out in the waters getting hit by the waves. She could be pulled under, and a riptide could take her right out to the ocean, and she could lose her life. When people start going out being thrill seekers, they place themselves in harm's way, and they put a lot of restraint and stress on professional responders whose jobs it is to safeguard and respond to people when they're hurt. Don't do that to them because they might have somebody else who really has an issue going on that they have to attend to. So do yourself a favor, stay home, bunker down, do the right thing, and don't be a thrill seeker. Here's a picture taken in Miami Beach. of a kite surfer in the background. This is a real photo. A journalist down there in Miami Beach reporting on the winds and the surf, and as this is being live on television, you can see the kite surfer behind her. Don't do this. This is high risk event that this individual is undertaking and putting their lives in harm's way. Don't do that. Rip currents, as we can see right here. This is what it looks like, the two arrows pointing in. It looks like a roadway heading out to the ocean. And basically what is happening is the current that's ripping going out towards the ocean is very strong. An Olympic swimmer can't even swim against those currents. So be cognizant of this. Stay away from the waters when there's high wind events, and you'll be doing yourself a big favor. If, however, you are ripped into a rip current, instead of trying to swim against the current, which will drain your energy and tire you out and will lead to you drowning, or swimming with the current, which will be a lot easier, but it will take you out to sea, where you will be probably going to be lost. The best thing to try to do is to swim parallel to the coastline to escape. So you can see the picture there with the arrows pointing with the escape route. Try your best to do that. But once again, if high wind events are happening, whether it's a tropical storm or a hurricane, please stay away from the ocean. Tornadoes. I said before, I grew up here on Cape Cod, never heard of them. I know technology has changed greatly since those days in the 70s and 80s, so they're able to pick up on events that they never saw before. So maybe that's part of it, but at the same time, we're seeing more tornado activity here in Massachusetts. And we had 3 on July 23rd, 2019, down in South Yarmouth, West Yarmouth, and Harwich. They were EF1s, which are 86 to 110 mile per hour. They're very dangerous. They happen very quickly. There's very little notification time. Even though people do get warnings, the warnings require an immediate reaction. So I got to talk to a couple people in Yarmouth who said that they got down into their basement just in time, and they said it sounded like a freight train rumbling by, and it was really scary for them. So keep that in mind. We are seeing these things. They are an off-spin from hurricanes. So when we hear hurricanes coming up the coast, don't think it's a single event. It could be multiple events. It could be everything from the storm surge that we talked about to the torrential rainfall that causes inland flooding to tornadoes, and of course the wind effects from debris flying around. So be very, very, very careful when it comes to these things. Here's a picture from July 23rd, 2019 of the hotel down in Yarmouth that the roof fell off of, got ripped off of, didn't fall off, it got ripped off, and it happened very quickly. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the video of this. The picture doesn't do it justice, but you can see the roof as it's being ripped right up. Very powerful winds from a tornado that was an EF1, which is on the lower end of the EF scale. It goes from EF0 to EF5, EF5 being greater than 200 mile per hour winds. So something to think about. We're seeing this now here, and just be aware of that. The damages the next day, here's the parking lot there of the hotel there on the top left. You can see a lot of debris. Please stay out of these areas. Down wires could be there. You could get electrocuted. You could step on nails. There's a lot of bad stuff from the debris from any kind of building that has collapsed or been damaged. Just stay away from there. On the right-hand side, top photo, you can see the house has a tree leaning on the roof. Once again, if that's your house, do not go into it. Stay away from it. Once again, we could see down power lines that would cause electricity. We could also have gas leaks. The roof structure of the building might not be strong. So call the professionals, let them do the assessment, stay away, safeguard yourself. Finally, also, you can see the vehicle in the bottom one. Make sure that your homeowner's insurance and your car insurance is up to par, so that if something like this happens, that you're not financially in a hole, okay? Be prepared for that stuff. Next, I'm going to talk about the 3 steps for preparedness, and this is a big thing. First one is making a kit. Now, a lot of this information that I'm going to go over, you can get from the American Red Cross on their website, or you can get from the Federal Emergency Management Agency on their website. You can just Google it or go to those websites. They have a lot of great information because your kit could be completely different from my kit, okay? So this is something you want to plan for. Remember, if you want to be successful, you got to plan. If you don't plan, you're going to fail. It's guaranteed in anything you do in life. So when it comes to emergency preparedness, make a kit. They talk about water and food, and they'll tell you on those websites, the American Red Cross and FEMA, and other websites that teach about emergency preparedness, that each human being should have 1 gallon of water per day for 3 days. So right now it's my wife, myself, and our youngest daughter living at home. That's 3 of us. We would need 9 gallons of water for 3 days. 3 gallons for myself, 3 for my wife, and 3 for my daughter. It's this time of year, it's the summertime, it's hot outside. If we have a major event, we're not going to have any electricity. My air conditioning may not work, so I'm a bigger guy than my wife, so I may need more than 3 gallons of water. So you got to take those things in consideration. First aid kits, have them. I've had them all my life in my house. Both my daughters used to take the Band-Aids out of them all the time. So always be checking your first aid kits, making sure they're up to speed, making sure that if something is removed for them for whatever reason, that you replace them immediately. So be aware of that. Cash, have cash on hand. Remember the winter storm Nemo in February of 2013? Cape Cod was a lot of places were out of electricity and power for a whole week. And I remember being home and the local restaurants didn't have, they were closed down. The ones that had generator power, their credit card machines weren't working. So it's just something like that you want to think about. Have a little cash on hand so that you can buy food or whatever you need. Hygiene items, highly recommended. Make sure that you have those like toothbrush, toothpaste. Have them on hand. Medicine. Have your medicine. Have at least 2 weeks of your prescription medicines on hand. A lot of your pharmacies now and your doctors, they're doing great. They're doing great interacting with the towns in terms of ensuring that they'll have certain medications on hand in the event of an emergency. You want to go to your senior center, your council on aging. They have a lot of great information on things like this. If you're unsure, reach out to the Eastham Council on Aging. Ask them. Someone there has been talking to someone about how this stuff is all planned out at a higher level. And I'll tell you, you'll get some good information. Have a radio if you can, a radio that's powered by batteries. Make sure your batteries are changed out every 6 months because you want to know what's going on. And if you don't have a radio, you're not going to get good information. You'll get second, third, fourth-hand information that could be distorted from what actually is being put out to the public. So keep that in mind. And finally, a manual can opener. If you're going to have canned goods, make sure you have a manual one. You don't want an electric one. It's not going to work if you don't have any power. So think about things like that. Planning is key here, folks. I highly recommend it. Step 2, make a plan and develop an emergency plan that includes, do you evacuate your house? If you evacuate, where are you going to go? Some of us would have to leave Cape Cod. We'd have to drive down Mid-Cape Highway. We'd have to go over those 1930s bridges, the Sagamore and Bourne. Where are we going to? Where are we staying? How many other people are going to, let's say, the greater Boston area where the hotels might be all booked out? So you got to think about this stuff. If you have family off Cape, have a plan to go there. Let them know that they can plan to come to your place. Think about these things. Do you shelter in place? If you do shelter in place, because I know a lot of people don't want to leave their house, go to those websites I talked about, those resources. Learn information, because they got a lot of great tips on what you should do if you need to shelter in place. Very key to understanding, and it helps you plan so that you have a better 3 days in your home if you have to shelter in place before the electricity's turned on. So things like that. Know how to escape your home, how to escape your workplace, your place of worship, your stores that you go to. I used to take my daughters into the local grocery store, and I would say, how do you get out if the power goes off? and you can't see and stuff like that. I always would ask questions, and that's just part of my nature from my training and everything. But those are some of the things you want to think about. Have a place where you will gather. My wife and I and our daughters growing up, we always said that if we all had to evacuate the house, our neighbor diagonally across the street had a flagpole out there, we would all meet there. Those little things come in handy when something bad happens, because it will relieve a lot of stress if your rendezvous point everybody shows up at, that makes you, overcome the stress of the incident a lot better than if you don't have a plan and you don't know that they're up the street at a neighbor's house. So have those things in mind. Who is your out-of-state contact? FEMA, MEMA, they teach this all the time. If I can't get in touch with my wife, I have a friend down in Philadelphia, family friend. I would call them, and then they would try to reach out to call her, and vice versa. So that's good to know, just in case the cell towers are inundated with phone calls, and we can't get through to a local phone, that we have a place out of state. Do your neighbors need help? Let's be good citizens. Let's help each other out. We will. Our communities become stronger when we work together. We are more resilient, which means we overcome events and incidents if we work together. So help out your neighbors. Ask them, do they have a plan? Do they have a place to go? Take them into your plan if they don't. I had a next-door neighbor, an elderly woman from a number of years, and we had it so that if anything happened, if we had to evacuate, she was coming with us. So just keep that in mind. Help each other out. Be good citizens, and it just makes your community so much better. Finally, do you have pets? I have 2 dogs. I have a lab, and I have a Maltipoo. Little Maltipoo, big lab. 2 very different dogs, wonderful, but they have different needs. So you have to take that into consideration. They eat different foods. So when you're planning your evacuation and you got to take your dogs and you got to have your paperwork with you and everything like that, make sure that you're ready to go and that you're not running around wasting time trying to find things. So a plan will help. I call it a checklist or a underway checklist, because I've done so many years in the Navy that before we got out to sea, we had actual underway checkoff sheets. And you'd say, okay, do we have X, Y, Z? Yes. Did we do this? Did we do that? And you go right down the list. And the same thing with your emergency plans, your emergency kits. Have a plan. The third step in everything is be informed. And this is really, really important. You want to be informed. You want to know what's going on. And the town of Eastham Police Department has Code Red, which is an early notification system. All you have to do is to go on to the town of Eastham website, go to the police department, and you'll see it right there. It's very easy to register. It's confidential. It is free. They don't charge you anything. And if you register your cell phone and you're out of state on vacation and the police chief for Eastham puts out a Code Red message, you will receive that Code Red message because it will go to your phone. Go to https://www.eastham-ma.gov/police-department, and you'll find the Code Red sign-up link right there. Also with being informed is that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts many years ago understood that community public safety agencies such as police and fire will be inundated with phone calls during winter events or something like that, and it was really bogging down the first responders from doing their job, and we don't want to do that. So the state came up with a call system called 211. 211, you call it on your phone, and it will walk you through. It will say, if you live on Cape Cod, press 1, and you hit 1, and they'll tell you, there'll be all kinds of information. How long your powers have been out, who's there, who's doing what, a lot of great information. So just dial 211, stay away from calling your local police and fire, let them do their jobs, what they're supposed to be doing. Don't inundate them and bog them down. Dial 211, that's the Massachusetts Commonwealth's primary telephone information call center, and they'll have all kinds of information on there. All right? Radio stations. Radio stations are a big thing, community warning systems. So the official Cape Cod Emergency Alert System radio station is WQRC 99.9 FM. If you tune into that, you'll get a lot of great information, accurate. QRC also will talk to members of the Regional Emergency Planning Committee. They'll talk to local police and fire chiefs. So tune into them if you can. If you can't, the state's primary emergency alerts radio station is WBZ AM 1030. They also are on FM 98.5. And finally, the state's alternate emergency alert radio station is WBMX FM 104.1. You can see that all on my slide. Take advantage of that stuff. Don't get your information third or fourth hand. Get it from the professionals. I wanted to put in the local response plans for the Cape Cod Traffic Plan. So the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, along with the Massachusetts State Police, put together a traffic plan for Cape Cod to evacuate it in an event of a hurricane or other natural or man-made event that required an evacuation. So this plan has been going on for a number of years. There's a lot of professionals involved, and you know, you got to take into consideration these bridges that are in my hometown that I grew up in were built in 1933 through 1935. They're very narrow lanes on the bridge. They are going to replace the bridge. The plan's already in play, and the bridges are going to get wider. But for the time being, we're dealing with what we have, and they're nearly 90 years old. So take into consideration, we all know that the traffic gets heavy on the Mid-Cape. So if you're planning to evacuate, follow your plan, but also listen to the information and know that the state has come up with plans themselves. So what they pretty much do is they did this. FEMA and the United States Army Corps of Engineers did a study in 2015 on hurricane evacuation for the Cape. And they came up with these estimates, like how long it would take during a hurricane category 1 and 2 during peak summer season to evacuate the Cape, and they said 22 hours. I would assume that because we have more people coming to the Cape, we have more people residing on the Cape year-round, those numbers may be off a little bit, so something to think about. But, you know, people at the federal and state and local level have been planning this stuff for a long time. It's out there. It's nothing new. Just be aware of it, and once again, all I can say is be ready to move at your earliest convenience. But if you don't have a plan in place, you're not going to know where you're going. That's why it's important to have a plan. The state uses this thing called a decision support tool, and this is like when there's a hurricane, like in the Caribbean or something like that, and all the different models are coming out with what's the track of the storm. The state starts kicking in this decision support tool. So they are planning it. They're out there. They're doing it. That's why I say listen to those radio stations, listen to your local forecast, and understand that as they're doing this at the state level, they're also discussing this at the regional level here on the Cape. So everybody's talking. You don't see it, but it's happening, and then they're putting the information out best they can. Finally, at the local response plan, the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee, which consists of all your police chiefs on Cape Cod, all your fire chiefs. I serve on it. Your health agents coalition, they have members on there. It's a really good regional planning committee. It's the standard here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I know MEMA and talks about the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee to other parts of the state all the time. They always use it as an example of how well the collaboration and the networking here is on Cape. We're a unique region. We've been working together for over a century, you know, when it comes to public safety, and we'll continue to do so. But they came up with a regional sheltering plan through their subcommittee called the Barnstable County Regional Sheltering Task Force. And they came up with 6 regional shelters, and you can see them here on the map and the dots. And what I did was I listed them by the distance to the town of Eastham. The first one being Nauset Regional High School. That's right here in Eastham. The next one, Cape Cod Regional Technical School. I apologize because that's being changed as they put the new building up. But I think they're doing the Harwich Community Building right now. I don't know for a fact, but I will get that information to the Council on Aging, to Cindy Dunham over there, the Outreach Coordinator, and to Dorothy Burt, your Council on Aging Director. I'll make sure that they know where the regional shelter is in Harwich. And Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School and Station Ave in Yarmouth. Also Barnstable Intermediate on Falmouth Road in Barnstable. You see Sandwich High School has one in Falmouth High School as well. And these 6 regional shelters also provide animal sheltering. So if you have pets, I just ask that, they just ask that you bring food for your pet, toys, and just understand that the pet can't go into the living quarters with you. They have to go into the sheltering component where the animals are kept. Finally, every town on the Cape has a warming they may not have a regional shelter in their town, but they have warming centers. In my town of Bourne, we use the Bourne Community Building. So it will be open from like 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night in the wintertime during a storm, so that people can go there if they don't have any heat in their house to stay warm, charge their cell phones, reach out to family so that they can make accommodations while their heat's not working and so forth. I know here in Eastham, the Eastham Town Library is your warming center. So once again, sign up for your Code Red here in town, because they're going to put a lot of information out there about what's happening here in town. The town of Eastham runs your Code Red system, no one else. So, the town of Orleans is not going to be putting out Code Red messages to you folks. It will just be your police chief, fire chief, town administrator. So sign up for it. Once again, it's confidential, it's free, and it's right on your police department's homepage. Finally, because of the new system here with the COVID-19, there's not going to be any live questions or answers right now. However, we are planning, I know the Council on Aging in Eastham, Dorothy Burt, is planning on doing a Zoom session coming up, where I will be on and I'll be able to answer all your questions as best I can. If I don't, I'll get your contact information and I'll research it and get to you. Also, I know that they're going to put my email address here, and it's going to be made available to you. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. I am responsive. I will get back to you. And I love interacting with fellow Cape Codders, because that's my job. But not only that, I'm a very social person, and I like interacting with people. So I look forward to hearing from you and interacting with you and answering any questions you may have. Take care, enjoy yourselves this summer, but be safe and pay attention to what's going on with weather forecast, all right? Thank you very much.